Alright, today I'm test riding the Forbidden Druid V2. I have a demo from Fanatic Bike Co. in size S3, and I'm here at Blanchard State Forest in Bellingham, Washington. Yeah, so gonna give it a try and let you know what I think. So right off the bat, the handlebars are quite wide here. They're probably 800s if I had to guess. I normally run around 770, so that'll probably make a difference in how the bike feels more than anything, but I'll try to ignore the wide bars. I've got my warm gloves on to start because it's currently 26 degrees Fahrenheit out, so well below freezing. I'll take them off at the top, but might as well give my hands a fighting chance. I don't normally run axis, and this is configured with the gear shift to easier gears being on the top, which in my mind seems backwards, like versus some reason up means forward, means harder. So I'd probably run it differently if I had this, but I don't know if I'll ever really have this wireless axis stuff because I don't know about this whole pod, and even on the other shifters, they just don't have the feel. So I'd like a little more tactile feedback from wireless shifters. We've got the codes on here. These look like the most basic bronze version, so we'll see how those are. So at the moment, I don't feel any drag from the idler. I do hear a tiny bit of noise though, which I think lines up with my experience on the old version, the version 1 Druid and Dreadnought, where the idler also had a little bit of noise. Yeah. Otherwise, the bike feels great. The seat tube angle is nice and steep. No pedal bob, feeling very efficient. One thing, I did a little bounce test in the parking lot and tried to set up the suspension, and on this budget charger damper on the Lyric, I've ended up with the compression all the way closed. It only has like 3 positions, and the closed position that I'm in right there still hardly generates any damping, and it's really cold out, so I don't really know if this damper is really doing much. Yeah, I think they tried to speed things up a lot on the update of these, because the original Charger 3, they'd gone pretty damped and you couldn't get it open enough, and now they've swung back the other way. Obviously, I've only tried a handful of these forks, but yeah, I don't know. RockShox is not something I'm as familiar with. I do have a Zeb on my e-bike, and it's good, but same thing. I have the compression almost all the way closed, and it's almost doing nothing. So I don't really get that. And I'm not the type that is like, oh, I need crazy compression. Like, I just want a little bit of feel. Just a little bit. Like, I don't know. Interesting stuff. Gonna keep pedaling up here and go do a techie trail climb, and then pretty fun descent called Rickrolled, also known as Randy's Slappage here at Blanchard. Alternate incline here. This will have a couple techie climbing moves. it'll be a good test of this bike's climbing prowess. Nothing too crazy on the tech climbing, but yeah, it seems to just be in a good, comfortable position, and it crawls right up. Doesn't feel like it's doing anything weird. Let's see if I can clear this thing. So they can move. Yep. Not too bad. Yeah, I think the seat tube angle is steeper on this than on my Orbeas. It just feels at least steeper, and that's pretty nice when you're trying to get up stuff like this. I guess the other thing I could be feeling is that the chainstay is a little longer too, so that keeps the balance a little more dialed for climbing. Like the rear wheel is further behind you, so it keeps the lever holding the front end down. Yeah. Yep, but climbs no problem. So after doing that climb with the transmission, my feeling is, I guess I just don't understand the delay in shifting speed when it doesn't, like, it still crunches. I don't understand. Like, I feel like the SRAM marketing machine is really effective. Kudos to them. I think it's nothing special. Like, I don't know. I think they have better ramps each year, but I don't think there's any magic in the electronics besides just a delay compared to the old version. I think the direct mount is cool. Like, the direct mount makes sense to me, and I wish they would offer a cable version. I know there's pictures of it floating around. I hope they don't nerf it. Like, I hope it doesn't become SX level or something. Yeah, I feel like the derailleurs with the batteries, I've seen so many batteries die and the pogo pins fail, and not to mention the weight of the thing. And then the clutches are not maybe the best. Like, I think it's not progress, it's just different. So very curious to see if or when Shimano comes out with something new, if it will be more of a practical improvement instead of just like a flashy upgrade. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the transmission. I just think, what if we took that money, because in the end it costs money, like, to make this fancy electronic derailleur. What if we put that money into upgraded brake rotors or something? Like, I don't know. It is interesting to me what, like, are the product managers leading the charge and dictating what consumers want, or are the consumers actually silly and just staring at the derailleur and nothing else when they're buying a bike? I don't know. There's just so many other things, like dropper post length, bar width. Like, why don't they just let the consumer pick their bar width? Like, I know some brands do that, but there's so many other factors, I guess, that make a big difference. Or like a damper upgrade, how much is that compared to a wireless derailleur? Like, what if instead of that I had a damper that actually did something? I don't know. Instead of having a battery to charge before I go on every ride. I don't know. It just seems maybe short-sighted to assume customers are dumb and give them a product that, is flashy but dies in a year. I just don't understand. Obviously other derailleurs with cables wear out too, but they don't have a PCB and a lithium ion battery Like, there's no way that a traditional 11-speed derailleur uses more resources. Like, it must be a quarter of the resources to build compared to one of these electronic derailleurs. And obviously our bikes are all silly and they all take resources, but I think what I'm trying to equate it to is those resources cost money, and what if we could offer a more practical, better spec'd bike by putting that money somewhere else, and then also having really education-based marketing so that people know how to set up their bike. Because riding this, it's like, cool, the frame's great, but there's just like little things like the damper and the brakes and the bar width that are of course changeable, upgradable. Bar width's easy to cut down, but like, what if that didn't have to be done by the consumer and in exchange they had a cable? Just a thought. All right, the gloves are coming off. Gonna cruise through Rickrolled here. Wow, it's frosty. That was not the right line. Really interesting conditions. Try to keep it upright. Right off the bat, noticing just how quiet this bike is. Whoa. What do we have here? Normally you can go a little faster off of that, but I wasn't taking any chances today. The ground is very hard. Quiet the bike is through the chunk. It just has such good chain flap. Where am I going? Okay. I obviously do not know where I'm going on this trip. Yeah, man, I really noticed. Wow. That was cool. I cased it, and you just notice the rear wheel get out of the way a little more. Yeah, I was saying that I really noticed the wide bars, and yeah, it's interesting how much that affects how nimble the bike feels. But the frame has a lot of what feels like stiffness to it, so it's like, feels like, compared to my Orbeas, that it has some more side to side stiffness built in, and just all around feels like it's a more stout feeling. That can obviously have pros and cons, because, you know, it can be punishing if the bike is too stiff, but it just has this like rock solid feel to it. I think honestly I would probably add pressure to the rear shock. I was gonna be riding this bike a little harder, but not bad the way it is at the recommended sag. Wow, yeah, see the wide body sister section feels not ideal. I feel like I'm riding a bit kooky, but here's the way it be. This is definitely not my fastest lap down this. Starting to actually be annoyed with the wide handlebars. Just feeling a bit weird. But the frame feels really good, and I'm trying to not judge it based on setup. I also don't want to crash. I think I'm also noticing these codes are not awesome. New line there, okay. So these codes definitely have a weird feel, similar to other SRAM brakes I've tried, where they just feel very wooden. Like they have some power, but it doesn't bite the way you expect, and it also doesn't come on the way you expect. So, you know, I need to spend more time on some Mavens and see if maybe the answer to the SRAM feel. Wow, that was sketchy. Need to spend more time on Mavens and see if maybe, even if the lever feels still really wooden, the power makes up for it. But these are just not awesome. Overall though, first lap down, yeah, interesting. The so much of the suspension, drivetrain, brakes, cockpit setup dictates how the bike feels. So I think being on this demo was a lot different than being on my buddy Keith's bike, for example, that I rode the other day. And his, I felt right at home right away. And on this one, I just felt a little weird. And honestly, it's the same exact frame. So it has to just be the accumulation of all those other things, namely suspension setup and bar width. But yeah, Forbidden Druid V2, pretty interesting bike. Definitely has a lot of character and a lot of ability to munch up rough stuff.